Greetings everyone, hope you all are doing okay considering the circumstances right now. And luckily this video is all about how to actually be, not more than okay, how to actually thrive in the situation that we're in right now. Because a lot of people are kind of in survival mode, and you can survive, you can sustain, or you can thrive. And no matter what situation is happening in the world, no matter what fear tells us or the media or people try to convince us of, every situation in life is still happening for you, and there's an opportunity to look at that and take advantage of the situation and actually make the best out of it. And to me, this is like extreme measures. People being quarantined to their homes, not being able to go out, not being able to spend time with friends, events being canceled, not really being able to plan for any future stuff, just being in survival is actually a pristine time to completely change and grow your life. So I want to talk to you a bit about today this concept, which I've been exploring for many years and experienced firsthand. And it's kind of like this idea of being unshakable or unmesswithable or unscrewable, unfazable, you could call it, unfazable. Basically the idea is no matter what comes your way in your life, you can be unfazable in that phase. So if something really bad happens, you can flow through it. You can understand the greater meaning of it and actually make the best of the situation. So what's interesting about things like self-help, but even philosophy, is a lot of the things like make sense in the mind, but to actually embody the stuff is a whole different thing. So I also want to get into the side of the embodiment of these experiences. Also, let me just say, whatever situation you're in right now, don't try to compare yourself to me and say, well, I'm not like that. I'm never going to be like that. I'm just a human that figured out how to make sense of life. It's really freaking simple. At the end of the day, it seems complicated and we overcomplicate things, but everything in the world starts out extremely simply. Even rocket science, even quantum physics, even though there's these big words and our minds are like, well, what is happening? Everything starts out at the most basic level of like a 1 or 0 or just like a yes or a no, or whatever the choice is. So you can learn anything, and I mean anything, as long as you start simply. So everything I'm going to be sharing in this video is really like, my experience of it. But I didn't just wake up one day and have it, or I wasn't born with it. These aren't like special gifts. It's like art, being an artist isn't just saved for the few that try to have a profession, but anyone can tap into their own ability to create art. So first off, with everything going on with COVID-19, and this doesn't just apply to COVID-19, coronavirus and stuff, it applies to anything, but with everything going on because of that, it's forced us to have to go inward. And we have options, right? The first option is we can check out, we can watch streaming services all day, and we can stuff our faces with food and just sit in fear and panic and stress eat and just wonder and be depressed and isolate ourselves, and that is an option. And for some people, that's probably what they're going to do. I'm not saying that's the option you should choose, but that is obviously one of the options. So for some people that might be the thing. However, what I would say is use this as an opportunity to go inward into yourself, because if you stop and you look around, you have every single thing that you could possibly need. And I know it sounds generalized. You're like, who are you to say you have blah, 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 blah. But what I really want to get across is that when you stop and pause for a minute, you have yourself. And yourself and presence and breathing and relaxing and going for a walk, these very basic things can teach you everything that you need to know about the basic everything in life. So first off, there's a lot of panic going on, again, understandably. But in times of panic, people don't necessarily stop to think, because the panic, the fear, the stress never helps the situation. So if you're trying to be sort of unmesswithable, and again, what that means is like to be in a state that no matter what happens, you can completely thrive. You can figure out the situation and make the best of it. If you're trying to be in that state, the first thing you need to do is pause and look within. Breath, whatever the thing might be, you pause and you look within. Because if you're reading headlines and you're panicking and you're going into fear and stress, what happens is your body is reacting to that stress. It's getting tired. It's depleting all of its energy and its resources. And you're not actually thinking straight. Because even if as a student, when you study, if you start to stress out, you actually start losing information. I even tell people in school, like, hey, if you're working hard and you're starting to stress, walk away, go for a walk, go outside, breathe, jump around, do something. Then come back and approach the situation being more calm, because you're not going to learn something at a point when you're super stressed out. What seems to be happening in the world right now is people are freaking out because of what's going on, and they're just trying to save lives. And obviously saving lives is a great thing. However, if we're not thinking about what's really happening and we're just acting out of fear, we're only perpetuating the cycle that got us here in the first place. Everything is happening for us. So even COVID-19, it's forcing us to look at the basic infrastructures of life and forcing us to show us what is actually real versus what is not real. What actually serves us, what doesn't serve us. What are the things we're wasting time and money and resources on? And a huge piece of actually getting to go internal, getting to turn around and point the finger back at ourselves and not just blaming people. Because you can get caught up in that. You can get caught up in the media and blame the government and blame the healthcare system and all these things. But all you're doing is putting your power outside of yourself. If you actually want to become powerful, you need to point the finger back at yourself. So as you may know, I wrote a book recently called Conversations with Your Best Friend. And if you click the link below, you can check out the book. And what I love about the book is it's really just a tool designed to help you look at your fear and to overcome the fear. So it's really there to show you what your fears are. Who is this false narrative that has been running your life? What is this false character that you've been playing your whole life that's leading in fear, making choices out of fear, when in reality that's not who you are? So how do you find that? And the book is a great tool. So of course, if you want to check it out, click the link below, but I'm going to share more in this video. That's just like a deeper way to really deepen the understanding and the practice. But when we look at fear isn't, to me, it's not a bad thing. I don't want to use fear as a bad word. I think fear, when seen correctly, is a great thing because it shows us who we actually can be. It doesn't keep us small. It shows us how big we can be. But when we succumb to the fear, when we think that we are the fear, and we're like, oh my God, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to die, and we just freak out, then we're just we're actually making it worse for ourselves. We're lowering our ability to heal ourselves. Our immune system's going down because we're stressed and anxiety and fear. So when we actually pause, it's amazing how like the simplest things, when we actually pause and start to feel into ourselves, start to process what we're actually scared of, things change. I've actually had to go throughout my whole life, and even recently, I've had to think, okay, what are my fears? And go into them. I think about them. Like, what is the worst? It's like almost like worst case scenario. And I'm not saying this as like a negative thing, but actually it's good to explore those things. It's like if you're depressed, instead of trying to avoid being depressed and like fearful of what that's going to mean, go into the depression, look at it, see where it actually comes from. Because we can actually get to the root of these things, then we can dissolve them. And oftentimes the root of it is just this fear-based character that is running our lives. So if you want to be unmessable, if you want to be in a state where you're like completely in tune with everything, you need to start looking at yourself. I feel completely. Of course, I have things that I'm still learning and growing and working on, but I feel completely ready and prepared for what might come. And even just in the state right now where it's like people are, with trying to buy foods and not knowing what the future holds and stuff. Like, I've been spending years of my life just living in the present, learning how to cook for myself, being present with food, doing things that really bring me joy, like playing music, finding ways to connect with others in person, but also, through the internet if I need that, finding ways to connect more with myself, finding ways to physically be able to heal myself so I'm not afraid. We got someone. All right, back. We had a delivery come to our house. So I just want you to pause for a second and think about this. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's first off, it's fine. The worst thing you can do is get into this loop of feeling bad that you're feeling bad. Whatever you're feeling, allow yourself to feel it. But imagine for a second that you actually could be unmessable in the face of everything going on. Imagine if you could be unfazed. So one of the first books I ever read about Zen Buddhism, I was getting into Buddhism already many, many years ago. And I read this book on Zen Buddhism. And the opening scene, there was this guy, they were basically in California, and they were having this meeting. There was this meeting of like 15 businessmen and women in a room. And they're all sitting there. And they're all kind of just doing their thing. And they're talking. And everything's fine and normal. And suddenly, gigantic earthquake hits. And everyone's panicking, freaking out, and running to the doors and screaming and everything. And then finally, 30 seconds, a minute later, everything settles. And this guy writing the book notices that there was some guy there, I think it was a Japanese man, and he was just sitting there, and he was completely calm and at peace. And the guy goes up to him, and he's like, we just had an earthquake. How is that even possible? So he starts telling him about Zen Buddhism. And the book then goes into Zen Buddhism. I'm not going to get super into it, but the idea is that they go to these monasteries and they train to attain enlightenment. And once they've attained enlightenment, they go back into the world as businessmen and doctors and lawyers and bank tellers and whatever it is, just to exist in that state within the world. So for anyone that thinks being in this state means you have to like completely shut off all your emotions and all your dreams and all your ideas, no, it's not about that. It's about knowing thyself. It's about grounding in the truth of who you are. Because when you're in that state, then you can go do whatever you want. But the first state is waking up to the truth, to seeing who you are, to exploring who you are, to going to the depths of everything you've experienced by looking at yourself. So we're in this amazing time right now to actually look inward, to see who we actually are. Because that is the only thing. Once you discover the false character that you've been and get to see who you actually are, well then go do whatever you want. Because then you're existing from a place of flow. When you're in your flow state, when you're in your truth, when you're aligned with yourself, everything makes sense. But if you try to do things before you've done that one thing, you're going to completely whack things around. So we're going to whack things around. So what I say is look at who you are and use this time as an opportunity. It's not all going to happen at once, but use this sort of going inward, this quarantining, to journal, to read things that are going to open your mind up, to expand, to look into the depths of your soul, to see who you are. And even if that means you're stuck in a room and you just have your basics, well, again, you have yourself. So you can write and you can write and you can write and you can get clearer and clearer onto what is possible. Because the more we understand who we are, the more then when we go out and make choices, those choices are based on our own truth. If we're just existing from fear, we're making choices that aren't even us. And do you really want to live a life just blindly being some like zombie robot your whole life, just like getting by because that's what you were told to do? Or do you actually want to get to know who you actually are? Because when you exist from who you are and you make the choices based on that, then you're not questioning your choices. The reason we question choices in life, the reason we get depressed is because we're putting in so much energy to this false character. So the false character is trying to choose and we know something doesn't feel right. We're making the safe choice because we know we were told that this is what we have to do, and if we don't, blah, 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 we have all of these stories going around. So when we make the choice, it just doesn't feel right. Or it's like, well, I choose this, but I could have chose this. For me, being in this state of just being completely unmessable, what I know is that I don't have to make choices. I just sit back and I wait for the answers to come, because when I'm existing in truth, which is the state that I'm in, I know exactly what needs to happen. And I wait, and if something's not clear, I just sit back and I wait. And so when I have to make a choice, it's not actually making a choice. There aren't this option or that option. I see two possibilities, and then eventually one fades away because I know that there is only one possible option, because I'm clear. And when I sit back and I allow myself to get clear, it's just a knowing. It's not a this or that. It's not a chicken or beef. It's just a deep-seated knowing. It's the same thing that works with the way that we eat. You know, if you eat intuitively, if you eat based on like what your body needs and asks and craves for, you're not wondering what you should be eating. You're not so confused because you have a connection to your mind and your body. So you know intuitively what you should be eating. So there's no longer confusion about, you look pretty good, what are you eating? You know, and all these things. Hey, that's for you. So that's just a tiny piece. And what I want you to know is that when it comes to creating content videos, I haven't really been inspired in like last year and the last couple of years. And now I feel this huge wave coming back, especially with everything going on in the world right now, because I'm seeing everything I've been training for, everything I've been working on, you know, being able to prepare myself mentally with fear and physically and all, cooking and all the different things that I do are leading up to this space to be able to share them with you. So that's where I get my motivation. My motivation comes and my excitement comes from knowing that if I can help even just one person out there feel a little more calm, feel more grounded, understand the nature of their reality, then that's great. Because chances are, if you're in this space, if you're watching this video, then you already know what I'm talking about. You were just looking for someone to articulate it in a way to make sense. Sometimes we need validation, you know, in the form of a friend or of a book or something. Hint, hint, conversation with your best friend, link below. In the form of a book. For me, it was a book originally, and then other friends that reminded me that the state that I was in wasn't the weird, wrong one, but it actually made perfect sense. So allow yourself to drop into that state by first looking at who you are, knowing yourself, getting to have a connection with who you really are outside of all the pressures and things. Take this time to ground, to go inward, and see what comes out of that. See what you discover about who you really are, so that way when this thing is over, we can actually make choices based on truth and realize that the world is kind of realigning and forcing us to go inward, which is really cool, you know, because there's something way bigger that's kind of helping guide us than just our own little ego. Anyhow, hope you all are well. Chat soon.